Now what I'm going to do is I've cut off, I'm going to build 2 dual coils. I'm not going to bore you with the build part, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to get me a piece it's probably about an 8-inch or so, maybe a 10-inch, 12-inch piece of wire. I'm going to grab each end of it in a pair of needle nose pliers, okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm going to grab each end of it. And why am I'm going to straighten it out and I'm going to stretch it. I've been reading on my tension microcoil thread. All I'm going to do is pull it nice and that plier slipped off. That wasn't cool. I'm grabbing it by the end so I don't, because those ends are going to ultimately get clipped. You just got to get a nice grip on it. And probably this one set of needle noses I'm using shouldn't be pulling anything nice and tight. Well, pulling it nice and tight, that's going to make the wire nice and straight for one thing. And it's also going to, from what I'm reading, stretch the wire some. That's the big deal I'm hearing about this tension. But why can't we tension before we wind? That's what we're going to do. Why can't we do that? Okay, so now we're gonna build this rope. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna quickly wrap up these coils using my coil masters here, and then I will be back in action. Let me show you how I go about throwing this together, okay? So now we're gonna make a coil. This is how it comes off the coil master right here. This is about what it looks like, okay? We're gonna make one like that. So the first thing you gotta do is we gotta remove this starter wind. The perfect thing for that is the coil master pole itself. You just put it on this pole, and what I wound it is I overwound it by like a wrap and a half. It's because what you're going to want is you're going to want both legs coming off this coil like a Z coil, one coming off one way and one coming off the other. And I'm so dorky I can't even get this the right orientation. Now please keep in mind, let me preface this by saying that there's a camera and a viewfinder between us, so it probably looks pretty complex. And anytime you do anything, just try putting a camera and a viewfinder in front of you. A, trying to keep it in the viewfinder, and B, working around the camera. So if it looks like it's harder, it is. It's just naturally harder to do stuff with the viewfinder between you. So we're going to grab this starter wrap. That has to be removed no matter what you're going to do. The key is to disturb this coil as little as possible. So I'm going to be pressing on this with my thumb. This leg is going to wrap around, and it's going to look weird when I'm done, but I'll explain the method to my madness. And we're going to pull on this, squeezing this coil with your thumb so it forms that wire. So I'm going to remove my first half a wrap here. Okay, and then I want this leg, I want it to stick completely up. That way, like I said, it's like a chalice sort of Z coil. When I'm done, that's where it's going to be. And I'm squeezing it pretty hard right now, right there. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so that's going to wind up being an 8-wrap coil right there. Okay, when we're done, it's going to be 8 wraps. So here's what we're going to do. And this is going to be weird because I've never done it with a camera between me before. Here's what we're going to see. How I got the center of this coil, and I want this leg to come off the center here. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this with this pair of pliers, squeeze the coil, and take this leg and bend it down. Just like that. See that? Now I've got to turn the coil over. Now look how that's coming off there. Hopefully the lights will show you that. It's coming off kind of the center of the coil. Now we're going to do the same on this side with this leg. We're going to turn this coil so we see where this leg is. And this might look like a little bit of overkill, but it's somewhat of an advanced technique. I've just started teaching it to myself. But remember, these coils are going to be on here for a long time. So we got to get this to right about there. And then we've got to squeeze this end of the coil right about here. Then we're just going to take this leg and bend them down. Again, do you have to do this? Probably not. To vape, get a great vape. It's a little bit of an extra step, but my coil will be on this thing for months. Why not take my time, make kill coil? So now what we have is a coil that's sort of in this fashion. So how do I get that little bend in this leg? Here's what I'm going to do. I take the special Tommy D tweezers. This is the part that's going to be weird on camera because I usually have to rest this up against something. But we're gonna pull this off, guys. Don't worry. Slip it through here. The rod. That's a 2.3, I think, millimeter hole that the home's done went and drilled for me. Slip the coil on here. This is an innovative tool. Watch for it in vape stores everywhere now. That China will clone it. Trust me. And I kind of just came up with the idea. I'm not saying that there's not other people that have already bored holes in their tweezers, but if you can get a pair of tweezers with a hole bored through them that's like 2.3 millimeters, you'll see the beauty of it in a minute. Now again, this is, if I can't get this like really quickly, I'm just going to pull it back here, and then once it's done, all right, I got that much of it on there. Now, there's the beauty. I got the coil. It's unable to unwind, okay? So I look for the thinnest part of the tweezer, because this thing, there you go. Right here is where the thinnest part is. I'm squeezing the coil. Thinnest part of the tweezer, I'm just going to take this leg and I'm going to bend it over like that, okay? Now it's bent over sideways. Now I'm going to take my pliers, and while I'm still squeezing the coil so as not to deform it, as close as I can get in there, I'm going to bend it nice and straight back out. That's it. So we're getting real all kinds of advanced and crazy here. That's going to help you center your negative, center your coil in there, and give these coils a way of coming off here nice and straight without deflecting when we tighten them, okay? So let's go ahead and pull this mod in. Let's get a coil on here, and let's mount it. We'll go, I'm doing reverse. Usually I mount the other way. I always mount the other side first. But we're going through right here. Center post, and don't go through the squonk hole. Center post, and this one's just going to fall over here like that, okay? Go right under that screw. I've kind of adapted myself to keeping the screw. I'm going to be looking over the viewfinder, so if I get out for a minute, don't crush, kill, and destroy me. It happens every now and then when you're working with stuff like this. So that fits perfectly under that screw. It's going to turn in the direction of the screw rather than working against it, okay? In a perfect world, I'll probably have to get my hand in there and hold it. Or I may just give it a little tiny bend like that. Let's see. It's turning against me. It's working against me. It's my first time building on this side of the screw. But we're not giving up, trust me. All I'm going to do is go like this at this point. Take it back here. Fold it under. Push this in a little bit more. Grab this with my finger, got that coil just about centered in there. I'm just going to go like this, watch. Hold that piece of wire right there. It might still dance. My first time building reverse like this, but I do not give up easy on stuff. I'll take my time doing this. Oh, it's a smart idea to keep the battery out of your mod when you're doing this. I've been learning that, or turning it off, one of the two. Taking the battery out the easiest. Now look where that coil's sitting. Perfectly almost centered. Okay, it's pretty well undisturbed. It's in pretty good shape. It's not going to be perfect. I've given up on trying to keep my coils completely perfect, every wrap touching. But I'll tell you what. Now here's the other thing I've been doing differently. Instead of bending this up and getting it in the way, I can naturally see that the other wire is going to come through this way. So I'm going to take this wire and just bend it like over here, okay? And yeah, my coils, they probably will separate a tiny bit. Don't let that just like freak you out. I mean, you can go crazy on that stuff, and the vape is no different. But if you have a pretty decent constructed coil, and you try your best to keep its integrity, that's right. Oh, and this one now, remember, we got to kind of bend this up a little tiny bit, like this, to get past the other coil. Otherwise, it's going to get hung up on your other coil. Very important fact for you duelers out there, probably even a little more vicious on the J. So it gets right past that other coil, no conflicts. See, I didn't viciously bend it enough at the end. I don't want to mess up my coil. So maybe just put my finger here. There you go. Watch this. See that? Now it's gone right past that other coil. Little things that make building dual coils, they can either go from being a challenge to being so dang simple you'll never build a single coil atomizer again in your life. Ever. Okay, little things. Now we're going to have this one right here. Right about there. Take this wire, bend it down there. Turn it around, do my grabby thing with it. Tighten it down. And that's that. Now, what's the biggest challenge to dual coils? Why? This is why I have two coil masters. Because you want to have a pole through each coil. And it helps if they're going in the same direction. And we can get this wire up and out of the way. So we want to, the biggest challenge is when you turn that center post screw in there to keep the coils from getting like to keep them from getting screwed up or going in and out. So there they are. Okay, so you got your 2 poles there. You notice I'm not wrestling with those coils to shove them over or anything. I'm just letting them do what they want to do. I find that if the less you mess with your coils, just let them do their thing. If they're not perfectly straight horizontally, cool. The damage you'll do by wrestling with your coils is far outweighed by any advantage you're going to get. Okay, once you disturb the coil mass a bunch, you kind of screwed yourself. See, like I said, this one's not like perfectly horizontal, but by straightening that coil out, I'm not gaining anything on the vape. It's not going to do anything. But what I will do is more often than not is you'll disturb the mass, you'll pull the winds apart a little bit. Now we're going to keep at least one of these poles out, because we're going to be cueing those coils. All this other stuff we can get out of the way. We can go ahead now with our USA made wire. Oh, let me just check all my tightnesses again one more time. These stainless steel screws bite hard. Now, nice USA made pair of crescents here. Where are we coming out at? Right there. Try and get it as close to there as possible. A lot of us spend a whole bunch of time worrying about the end legs. I do too. I don't like anything touching metal, but I found out, it's a little secret, that that's negative, the cap's negative. You ain't going to short on your end legs. I've tried it. Don't try it at home. You probably will. I remember, I'm a lucky studdy. T-Bev, I like that. I went from Super X to Stud Boy, thank you Tom, to Studdy. T-Bev comes rolling in and even ups the ante a little bit better. I like that. I might change, well, if I could change my name to Studdy on ECF, I think I would. And everywhere else, because it's pretty cool, considering I'm actually quite the opposite of that. But it's cool. I like those little names. You can call me whatever the hell you want. I'm down. Boom. You know that ain't coming to us, because you wrench. When you got that new connector, if you have an old Rio with the old connector, do not wrench. If you've got the new Rio, oh, that's the other thing. Well, I don't know why I'm using these tweezers. You'll poke that freaking thing through your hand doing what I'm doing. When you have the Killer Tom tweezers too, that are rounded on the tips, that he ground down for me, any task involving wire, like the retrieval, pushing them in or anything like that, now I don't have to worry about like putting the tweezer through the end of my hand. And please, you guys do me a favor. I kind of begged Tom. I was short of sending some hookers up there to please, if you have a moment, to hook me up with these tweezers. You guys please don't go asking him to do this. Took him 2 bits to do it. And I said, let me like hook you up, Tom. But he was cool. He said, no, man, you already sent them to me. I said I'd do it. If I would have known it was going to be this big of a pain in the ass or something like that. Tom's just a really cool dude to me. I guess if I keep buying his Addies, he'll continue to be cool to me. So the coils are looking pretty good, right? Let's look on all planes at them. Again, are they like, oh my God, those are perfect coils, Russ. No, this one's out here a little more than I'd like it. This one's in here a little. So I'm going to go ahead and work this one a little. This one needs to be worked out a little. It's too close to the center post, not close enough to the deck. But that little bit of bend we gave in the leg should help a lot without it screwing with the mass of the coil, okay? By pulling that out just a little bit. There we go. See, that little bend helped to not dislodge all that stuff from there so much. I mean, again, I've given up on shooting for the most perfect, beautiful coils in all the land. Studdy's still married. He's not trying to attract any chicks with his coils. My coils vape freaking awesome. Okay, so now let's do this, okay? Let's go ahead and start firing these, and we'll fire them slowly, and you'll watch. Now remember, I stretched that wire a little bit first. Let me get up and just kick off these side lights right here so we can watch this process unfold before our eyes, okay? Kicking them off probably helped everything out now that I'm looking at that, but let's watch the process unfold of how we're gonna glow these things. That big light, do I need to turn it off too? Well, I'm not going to. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll reach up there and hell, we'll just shut it all down. Work off daylight. I don't know how that's going to work in here. How this camera's going to shoot in a low light. Looks pretty good to me. Oh, maybe I wasted my money on those lights, but let's see. We're just going to slowly, got to get a battery in the mod. That is extremely important to put a battery in. Don't try it without one. Okay, now all we're going to do is, we're not going to go all like, look at these coils turn orange. We're just going to gently pulse them. And I have this little philosophy now that while I'm doing it, I just vape. And you see, I'm not letting them get even close to orange yet. You're probably looking at all you masters out there. I don't think I have any of those. I know I've tried to create some freaks, but we're not so freaky that looking at those coils, and we want it natural. We want to try and straighten them all out and stuff. But again, unless they're way off, I wouldn't bother with it, because the damage you're going to do to your coils is outweighed by any gain you're going to get by doing that, okay? There's not really that much of a gain to it. Give them a little cue ball action here. This is that one that I think I pulled out over here. I'm not sure. We're going to cue them up a little bit. You notice you haven't seen any like straight up oranging on my coils yet, because I'm not there yet. This one over here, this one's way behind the times. Maybe because I didn't pull him enough. This one didn't get pulled at all, did he? That one over there. This one's been pulled, and it's it liked that pulling, I think, didn't it? So let's go ahead and pull this one a little tiny bit, okay? Again, it's kind of evening them out a little bit. Just give them a little time. You just pulse them slowly, break them in slowly. Don't break them in so fast. It's like, think of it, there's a dude that said it. Think of it like the engine in your car. You don't freaking redline it for the first couple weeks you have it. Although I lease my cars, so I do. I don't give a damn. All my stuff is leased. So I hope you're not the dude. Well, I take good care of my cars. I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say that, yeah, my cars are all trash, because they're not. They're in good shape. I am gonna lift this coil a little. This one is a little close to the edge for my liking. It's gonna take it and lift it. And if you see like a coil separating a little bit, you don't have to cry, because that's all right. They don't have to be exactly perfectly touching to vape good. I mean, even probably the coil that looks like it's touching the most perfectly ever in the world, I'll almost guarantee you it winds up with some gaps. Unless you're wrapping with like 19 gauge wire, it's going to wind up with some gaps in it. Just part of life. You're just going to have to get over it. Even though you think you have no gaps and everything's perfect, if your eyes are good and you start to look at stuff through a camera, and put it this way, to make them touch perfectly, like all the wraps perfectly touching, the amount of time it takes to not only wind that coil that way, to actually have it stay that way when you mount it in your atomizer, that's always going to be the challenge for anybody. You can make the most beautiful coil on the planet, but to keep it that way all through the mount, let me see anybody post me a video of you making a perfect coil, mount it, position it, and then have it look perfect after the fact. So the winds will separate a little bit. That's why all this, I just find it to be a little bit overkill, what we started to almost take coils to, and I think I helped lead it down that path. So if I did, I apologize. Yeah, that's my Hellboy doing all that damage, but the Rogue will be doing the similar damage. Look at those coils. See, they're starting to get blue. That's what you're looking for right there. Blue, no hot legs, slow pulsing. We're never going like straight orange on this thing. I'll turn my switch off. We're never going straight orange, like yellow orange for a while. We want to just let those bad boys do their deal. And yep. Here's a good sign right here. You're going to take your thing, as long as you can get your thing, your Coil Master pull through, whatever you're using through. That's why one of the things I like about the Coil Master, this thing is shiny and slippery. It's not like that it's not like that wire, music wire stuff that hangs up. Look, you can get that right through your coil. You know you haven't done anything wrong to them. You're good. You're golden. They're getting nice and blue. They're getting blue evenly. That's all, just that. I don't know what that does to a coil, but it just makes it just... Look at that. We're good. Now let's give it a full on. Ready? I think we've broken it in, ready to go for the 1/4 mile. There we go, a 1/4 mile on it. Pretty damn good. That's it. So there's my little rogue build. You want me to wick it for you too? Shall I? Shall I wick it? Let's wick it. Just making sure I have nothing like really seriously hot-legged here. And all I do if I notice any kind of hot legs is I'll just keep running this through until they go away. They ultimately will go away if you just keep running this through and not disturbing. Remember I used to tell you guys, pull out on it while you do. I just let it run through. That's the beauty of this one. It's the same size as the coil, a little less. And I just let it run through there. I'm not pulling on it. I'm not trying to disturb the coil. I'm trying to minimize any kind of disturbance on the coil. I know y'all are probably looking at there going, look at that coil. It's coming apart. It's not really coming apart. And anybody that can take 27 gauge wire, which is what this is, and make a coil that stays perfectly, I mean perfectly, zoom in on it after it's mounted and you've pulsed it and fired it and blued it, and you notice I'm not squeezing this with anything. I'm not squeezing it. Got my ceramic tweezers over there. I got whatever. I could have squeezed it before, during, after. It doesn't do anything. There's no difference in this, but like I said, if you think that your coil is perfectly stuck together, mount it, pulse it, do whatever, and make a video and show me that and zoom in on it. I'll zoom in on mine here for you and I'll show you that they've probably separated some, okay? Look, they do. It's just a fact of life. Look at this one right here in front of me. But look at the way it's glowing. It's glowing perfectly. There ain't no issue with that coil. Look at this one. And some of them will stay together a little better than others, but are those firing and heating evenly? So there's kind of like the tail of the tape right there. There's Mayweather versus Pacquiao, baby, and they're both, this is pretty even. Okay? You ain't got anything crazy going on in there. So you can see a coil that is somewhat separated a little bit over there versus one that hasn't. Do you see it? Show me, anyone see a huge difference in the performance of those? I sure don't. Because guess what? They both probably separated a little tiny bit. One's just a little more obvious than the other. But damn, I can't wait to wick it. Let's wick this puppy. Where's my KGD? Give me a second. I gotta wet my fingers. I'm gonna turn on some lights. I'll be right back. Alright, got my KGD here. Got the little kit. Got my tools right here for what I'm gonna need. This is for wicking. Got my pad. This is about 3/4 width of a pad. You will still need 2 types of scissors to wick with KGD, no matter what you do. You're just going to need them. There's no way around it. You're going to need one to cut the long piece. Now remember, this is a 2mm diameter, 27 gauge coil. That thing is probably coming in right at about 0.45 ohms of resistance. I've built enough of them to know. There you go. There's my little strip of Kogendo, or Kogendo. Okay, and then we're going to need these little scissors. Will come in handy. These came with that Coil Master Deluxe DIY kit. All we're going to do is wet the tip of our fingers with this little paper towel right here. It doesn't appear to be any major seed action in this beast. We're just going to twist the tip of this up. I'm not doing anything else, just going like that. Okay, I'm not twisting the cotton. There's a little thing on the tip of there. I get him off that little thread. Come through here. Oh, this is a reverse coil for me, by the way. That's right, because I always build them on the other side. All my life, I've built them all my life. Since I've been building duals, I've built them on the other side. But now I'm going this way because of I want them to go with the screws. Okay, so that's it. And just try and grab it as close to the coil as possible when you're pulling this stuff through. That way you wind up with as little bit of that as possible, like furrowing, burrowing, whatever you want to call it. Billowing shoulders. Now this wick is not like crazy thick, but it's not crazy thin either. It's kind of looking pretty perfect to me. Okay, so there's that. A lot of that's going to get cut off there. We're just going to come over here, get the fingers a little bit wet again. Okay, and we're just going to stick this in this end of this coil. Get the tweezers. Give it a little pluck through. Now, here's where we got to gauge. We're going to go, okay, we know for a fact that we want all of this, all that wet stuff is going to come off. So how much do I need to keep on this side versus that side? I think I'm going to need it about right. These are those sharp little scissors. Right about here. So now I'm going to pull this through, and I don't want a lot of wick in this thing. You don't want to obstruct your juice holes, okay? You just need to get down to the bowl. You don't want enough wick in here that's obstructing your juice holes. That's one thing I've been learning about this in every atomizer. Just a little bow tie. Okay, that's it. I know, we could stuff this thing plumb full of wick and what, we get more vapes out of it? Is that what you're going to tell me? You get more pulls? No, you don't. You might get a pull or two more, but it's not going to be the highest quality pull. Let me pull this over here and trim off this tiny little bit of excess. Let's pull this over to where we want it. Trim off this excess. You don't want to obstruct your juice holes. It's better to squonk more often than it is to obstruct your holes, okay? Squonking more often gives you fresh juice. That's the beauty of a squonker. We call it fresh juice, fresh squozen juice on demand. All I'm trying to do is get this down to into the bowl. I mean, just a little bit, just enough to pick up the juice that's in the bowl. Then let the bowl drain. Let it do its thing. You don't want to, you don't want all this wick collecting in there. It also obstructs airflow. Look at the path of air under that coil right there. It's perfect. Same here. That's what you want. Okay, and get these down in here. Give it a little squiz. Onk. A little juice in there. Let off slowly so it kind of keeps its vacuum with the bottle and helps it evacuate. And from this point on, I'm going to say that it's probably game on. Now this wick right here is probably just like, this one I probably cut a hair shorter than I would have liked to have cut it. Probably a hair shorter. I've been known to do that, but guess what? I'm not going to let it interrupt. It's not like, wow, it's way off. I'm going to vape the living dog piss out of it. And then when I change the wick in about a week from now or whatever, whenever I change it again, when you rotate through a mod a day, I use one mod every day till it's done, or until the bottle's empty, then I pick up another mod and then that bottle, and then when I refill them all, I'll change them. Or there's just certain days I might just feel like running a certain mod. They're all basically built about the same. That's that right there, see? Now, there is the Rogue. There is the Rogue right there. Just spitting fire. What do you say we take a pull off it? Let me put the cap on. Now what I do, I don't know that it makes any difference with the AFC. I've never played with them. And people will ask me, how does it vape with the AFC down? I don't know, because I've never closed it. I just don't. It's not me. To me, this one vapes perfectly wide open. Unflavored nick base. I'm a lung hitter to the max. Now there are other addies that I turn the AFC down, but what I try and do with those air holes is put them right over the top of the coils. Does it make any difference? Don't know. Haven't played with them. Well, let's take it for a little rippy rip. I'd say it's a pretty solid build. Pretty damn solid.